Welcome to the Search the Scriptures podcast, where we dive into Scripture and provide the explanation of it in the most accurate light that we can. Search the Scriptures is a podcast that is dedicated primarily to the Christian, challenging our brothers and sisters along with ourselves to see if we have set aside the commands of God to set up our own traditions. To do this, we use Scripture to explain Scripture. Please join us on this journey. Okay, so we are in 2 Samuel chapter 19. So chapter 18, they had got into it. David got into it with his son Absalom. Well, not David himself, because he stayed back. But David asked his commanders, hey, be gentle with him, don't harm him. And so they find Absalom, and Joab takes him out. He kills him. Doesn't care that the king told him the command was to not harm him. So he did it, kills him. And David finds out that his son they sent messengers back, and David finds out that his son is dead, and he just weeps bitterly. Open up with in 2 Samuel chapter 19. So let's jump right into it, Mary Berry. So 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 1-4 says, "It was reported to Joab, the king is weeping. He's mourning over Absalom. That day's victory was turned into mourning for all the troops, because on that day the troops heard the king is grieving over his son. So they returned to the city quietly that day, like people come in when they are humiliated after fleeing in battle. But the king hid his face and cried out at the top of his voice, 'My son Absalom, Absalom, my son, my son.'" So David, he's grieved by the death of Absalom, and he ain't hiding it. He is saying this at the top of his lungs, his voice. And so and what happens is the morale for the troops goes way down. It doesn't even feel like a victory anymore. It feels like they lost. Feel like like it says here, that they were fleeing from battle. They're humiliated. And so they're stealing into the city. They're like creeping into the city. They're not coming in with celebration, because they feel they're humiliated by it. They are because the king is not happy. He is definitely grieving. Questions or comments on this so far? All right, let's go to the next one, Mary Berry. So 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 5-7 says, "Then Joab went into the house to the king and said, 'Today you have shamed all your soldiers, those who rescued your life and the lives of your sons and daughters, your wives and your concubines. You love your enemies and hate those who love you. Today you have made it clear that the commanders and soldiers mean nothing to you. In fact, today I know that if Absalom were alive and all of us were dead, it would be fine with you. Now get up, go out and encourage your soldiers, for I swear by the Lord that if you don't go out, not a man will remain with you tonight. This will be worse for you than all the trouble that has come to you from your youth until now.'" So Joab, he lets David have it, his uncle have it, and tells him basically that that you love your enemies more than the people that love you. You love your enemies, and you hate those that love you. Basically saying that he straight up told him, he says, if Absalom would have survived, if he was still living and the rest of us were all dead, you'd be okay with that. You'd be completely fine with this. I know this about you. But Joab leaves this one little part here that has me questioning some things. It almost makes it seem like that if David doesn't do something, Joab almost makes it seem like he's going to take the troops, because he says, "I swear by the Lord," like he makes a solemn oath that if you don't go out, not one of these men are going to remain with you. None of these soldiers are going to stay with you. Any questions or comments on this so far? What you got, G. White?
No, Joab makes a good argument. I mean, I kind of feel like that too. He might not care if any of y'all died.
I remember, G. White, several chapters back, you had mentioned something just out of nowhere, it seems like. You said you feel like Joab is trying to take the kingdom. there's little things like this that happen that I don't know. Maybe you are right in essence, because this right here, like I said, I don't know if that's what he means by it, but what does that mean by him swearing to God? He's making a solemn oath to the Lord that he's going that not one man. How are you going to make that happen? Like, was that a prophecy, or are you saying that I'm going to take all these men from you?
I think if Joab say, let's go, I think they go.
I think they do also. After this happens, I think so. You have a point. Anybody else got anything on this? All right, let's move to the next one. Mary Berry. So 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 8 through 13 says, So the king got up and sat in the gate, and all the people were told, Look, the king is sitting in the gate. Then they all came into the king's presence. Meanwhile, each Israelite had fled to his tent. All the people among all the tribes of Israel were arguing. The king delivered us from the grasp of our enemies, and he rescued us, excuse me, and he rescued us from the grasp of the Philistines. But now he has fled from the land because of Absalom. But Absalom, the man we anointed over us, has died in battle. So why do you say nothing about restoring the king? King David sent word to the priest, Zadok and Abiathar, Say to the elders of Judah, why should you be the last to restore the king to his palace? The talk of all Israel has reached the king at his house. You are my brothers, my flesh and blood. So why should you be the last to restore the king? And tell Amasa, aren't you my flesh and blood? May God punish me and do so severely if you don't become commander of the army from now on instead of Joab. So David stands up, takes Joab's advice. He goes and he sits at the gate. Remember, he is not in Jerusalem. He is across the Jordan in Menheim. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. And so he's at that city in refuge, and they just won this battle. And so, but Joab gets on to him and says, hey, you need to go out there and rally these troops. You feel like they were defeated and that you don't care. And so, across these tribes, though, of Israel took off. They fled. They fled because they lost this battle. So so they fled, took off. They lost to David, and amongst them, they were arguing, basically saying, why is no one saying that we should bring David back? Like, he should be brought back as king over us. He was king in the first place. He fled when his son took over. He says, but now, like, why are we being silent about this? So they're kind of arguing with each other. This is the tribes of Israel, not Judah, but the tribes of Israel. So they're arguing about this, and that reaches to David. David hears about this, and then David reaches out to Judah and says, hey, why should y'all be the last to restore me to my king, to the kingdom? And so he reaches out to Judah, that's his own tribe, to welcome him back. And then he appoints Amasa, the commander, in place of Joab. And this is likely like a political move, I'm sure, because for a couple of different reasons. One, they like Amasa. He was fighting for the other team, and so he made him the commander. So it's kind of like a unification, if that makes sense, right? And it sidelines Joab, right? It said Joab had directly disobeyed him, and so it sidelines Joab. He's no longer the commander. Any questions or comments on this so far? What you got, G. White?
It seemed like Kobe and Shaq. Why we got to break this up?
Yeah, that's what, and not all of them were arguing. It was like half of Israel that was arguing against this. All of Israel lost, except for all of Israel lost, but half of them were arguing like why should we not bring David back?
No, I'm curious what David's up to. What his next move is now. We went this far. What else are you thinking?
We're about to find out. In the next few chapters, about to break down some crazy stuff, especially the very next chapter. So let's go to the next one, Mary. So 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 14 through 20 says, So he won over all the men of Judah, and they sent word to the king, Come back, you and all your servants. Then the king returned. When he arrived at the Jordan, Judah came to Gilgal to meet the king and escort him across the Jordan. Shimei, son of Gera, a Benjamite from Bahurim, hurried down with the men of Judah to meet King David. There were 1,000 men from Benjamin with him. Ziba, an attendant from the house of Saul, with his 15 sons and 20 servants, also rushed down to the Jordan ahead of the king. They forded the Jordan to bring the king's household across and do whatever the king desired. When Shimei, son of Gera, crossed the Jordan, he fell down before the king and said to him, "My lord, don't hold me guilty, and don't remember your servant's wrongdoing on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king not take it to heart, for your servant knows that I have sinned. But look, today I am the first one of the entire house of Joseph to come down to meet my lord the king." So a lot is happening in this little part right here. David convinces the men of Judah, and so they invite him back. Say, "Come on back. You're our king. Come on back." And then we're our attention is brought to Shimei. Now remember, Shimei was the guy that was kicking up dust at David, calling down curses on him while he was leaving Judah. And he called him a murderer and like I say, calling down curses on him. And so this guy shows up and then and beg for forgiveness. Right. So he's begging for this forgiveness. Ziba's also mentioned again. Remember Ziba, that's the slave from the household of the house of Saul. And so he goes out also and he helps David to cross the Jordan. Remember, Ziba had showed up earlier and said that Saul's grandson had stayed back in Jerusalem because he thought that he felt the kingdom was going to go to him. So he was slandering, so we'll find out here in a little bit anyway, Mephibosheth. And so Ziba's here again, making himself look good. He's out there helping the king cross the Jordan. And so, excuse me. But Shimei, he does acknowledge that he sins and he begs for forgiveness. He says, "I have sinned." And so he begs for forgiveness. Any questions or comments on this so far? All right. That's a lot of names to remember. I think y'all did a really good job of remembering these guys. Let's go to the next one. So 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 21 through 23 says, Abishai, son of Zeruiah, asked, "Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this? Because he cursed the Lord's anointed." David answered, "Sons of Zeruiah, do we agree on anything? Have you become my adversary today? Or adversary today? Should any man be killed in Israel today? Am I not aware that today I'm king over Israel?" So the king said to Shimei, "You will not die." Then the king gave him his oath. So this part is going to become important several chapters down. Veronica's probably already read it. So Shimei, well, first, Abishai, who is David's nephew and brother of Joab, he wants to put Shimei to death. This is the same guy that said, let me just go ahead and cut his head off at the beginning, whenever they were being kicked out of Jerusalem. They was rushing out of Jerusalem, and then Shimei was calling those curses down. He said, "Why should we let this dead dog talk to the king like this? Let me go over there and cut his head off." This is the same guy. And David responded in the same way, "Sons of Zeruiah, do we agree on anything?" And then he takes it further here. Said, "Have you become my adversary today?" Adversary or Satan, right? You're standing in my way. And he says, "I know that I'm king. Don't I know that I'm king in Israel today? Like, I know this." And so basically what David is saying, from what I understand here, is that David is trying to bring Israel together. He's trying to unify, restore his kingdom and unify Israel together. And what's his name? Abishai is standing in the way of that. And so he rebukes him for that. And so he gives his solemn oath to Shimei that he is not going to die. But remember Shimei, because he comes up later on. Questions or comments on this so far? It's going to be important what happens with Shimei and David. All right, let's go to the next one, Mary Berry. So 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 24 through 30 says, Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson, also went down to meet the king. He had not taken care of his feet. trimmed his mustache, or washed his clothes from the day the king left until the day he returned safely. Excuse me. When he came from Jerusalem to meet the king asked him, Mephibosheth, why didn't you come with me? My lord the king, he replied, my servant Ziba betrayed me. Actually, your servant said, I'll saddle the donkey for myself so that I may ride it and go with the king, for your servant is lame. Ziba slandered your servant to my lord the king, but my lord the king is like the angel of God, so do whatever you think best. For my grandfather's entire family deserves death from my lord the king, but you set your servant among those who eat at your table. So what further right do I have to keep on making appeals to the king? The king said to him, why keep on speaking about these matters of yours? I hereby declare you and Ziba are to divide the land. Mephibosheth said to the king, instead, since my lord the king has come to his palace safely, let Ziba take it all. So in this part here, we have the heart of Mephibosheth and the heart of Ziba. So that's what I'm saying. Ziba, we find out that Ziba actually slandered him. So Mephibosheth, he shows back up. Remember, he's the son of Jonathan. He's the one that's lame in both feet. He said that he stayed back in, Ziba said that he stayed back in Jerusalem to be made king. But Mephibosheth, he had clear signs of mourning since the day that David had left. So he could not have been after the throne. I mean, it says that he hadn't washed his clothes, he hadn't trimmed his mustache, he had not taken care of his feet. So it was obvious that this is not someone who is after the throne. It is obvious that that's not what's happening right here. I mean, he had to look like a mess if he's been this way since the time that David has left. And so it's clear that he was not going after the throne. Mephibosheth, he explains that he told Ziba to saddle his donkey for him, and Ziba deserted him and went straight to David and slandered him. Mephibosheth says that his family, the family of Saul, they all deserve death. He says, so he's not going to make any more appeals to the king. Like he says, do what you think is best. He said, this is what we deserve. And so David divides up the property between Ziba and Mephibosheth, because remember, David had already given the property to Ziba. And so he divides the land now between the two. And Mephibosheth says he can have it all. He's just satisfied that this king has returned. So it shows the heart of Mephibosheth in there. Any questions or comments on this? G. White, I saw you had a little emoji there. What were you thinking?
Yeah, so I see your heart, but he just gave it all up. I mean, initially I just assumed, man, he's guilty, Oh, you got me, man, you just take it all. I want nothing to do with that. Now, I don't need a city tape. It just kind of appeared that way. But the way you broke it down, it's like, well, that is a different perspective. But initially it did seem like, why you give up all your property with no rebuke?
Yeah, because like I say, yeah,
no rebuttal.
He sees it as, even as the prophecy stood, like there was no hope for the household of Saul. And so he's like, I already got to eat at the king's table. Like I didn't even deserve that. And so that's the way he just says it. Let Ziba take it all. So let him have it. Because that's the way he sees it. Like, I don't deserve any of this.
Well, how's he supposed to live? He can't even saddle the donkey.
He's still gonna be with David.
Oh, you're gonna have a caretaker take care of me, apparently.
Yeah, he'll be with David. Because he's staying with David. Yeah, he's good. That's what I'm saying. That's why he's like, you can have all my possessions, now that the king has returned.
Okay. And what did he mean by his whole family needs to die? He had nothing to do with what his daddy was doing.
He didn't, but there was a curse on his family though. So that's another reason why I would say that him becoming lame is probably good for him, because it made it to where he was not a threat to the kingdom. Like he couldn't become king, because if he did become king, then surely he would have been killed.
Ziba would have got him.
Or David. Not David. No, David wouldn't have did it. David wouldn't have done it, but he would have died.
Depends on what day it is. Say what on the day.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one, Mary Berry. So 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 31 through 39 says, Barzillai the Gileadite had come down from Rogelim and accompanied the king to the Jordan River to see him off at the Jordan. Barzillai was a very old man, 80 years old, and since he was a very wealthy man, he had provided for the needs of the king while he stayed in Mahanaim. The king said to Barzillai, "Cross over with me, and I'll provide for you at my side in Jerusalem." Barzillai replied to the king, "How many years of my life are left that I should go up to Jerusalem with the king? I'm now 80 years old. Can I discern what is pleasant and what is not? Can your servant taste what he eats or drinks? Can I still hear the voice of male and female singers? Why should your servant be an added burden to my lord the king? Since your servant is only going with the king a little way across the Jordan, why should the king repay me with such a reward? Please let your servant return so that I may die in my own city near the tomb of my father and mother. But here is your servant, here's your servant, Chimham. Let him cross over with my lord the king. Do for him what seems good to you." The king replied, "Chimham will cross over with me, and I will do for him what seems good to you, and whatever you desire from me, I will do for you." So all the people crossed the Jordan, and then the king crossed. The king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and Barzillai returned to his home. So we have Barzillai is brought up. So remember when David was in exile for this short amount of time away from his son, when his son was after him, he was being provided for. He had provisions. And we see here that it was actually Barzillai that fulfilled most of this, if not all of it. He was a very wealthy man. And so David is offering to return the favor. He said, come with me to Jerusalem, and I'll provide for you. While you're at my side in Jerusalem, I'll provide for you. And Barzillai, he politely declines and basically says, I'm not going to live that much longer. Like, and even still, like, I'm so old at this point, like how am I going to enjoy eating and drinking or listening to the songs of male and female singers? Like, I can't even enjoy what you're trying to have me to go and live with in Jerusalem. Like, I can't even fully enjoy that. Let me go home so I can and die in peace. He says, but I'll give you my servant. I give you, actually he says, here is your servant, Chimham. Many people believe that Chimham is actually his son. And that's because in Kings, whenever David's about to die, he gives orders to his son, Solomon, to take care of Chimham and the sons of Barzillai. Questions or comments on this? What you got, G. White?
Yeah, I do like how he says the burden. It seems like, and this is actually a good look, it seems like he collect a team of blue placards to come on his team. Everybody got handicap stickers. But that actually could be a good look for him. I think that's a different mindset, mind thinkers. And that's better than the Warriors like Joab. So that's actually a good look.
Okay. I didn't look at it that way. He's a bunch of blue placards. And so good point though. All right. Let's finish this up. 2 Samuel chapter 19 verses 40 through 43 says, the king went on to Gilgal, and Chimham went with him. All the troops of Judah and half of Israel's escorted the king. Let me go back to that. All the troops of Judah and half of Israel's escorted the king. Suddenly, all the men of Israel came to the king. They asked him, why did our brothers, the men of Judah, take you away secretly and transport the king and his household across the Jordan, along with all of David's men? All the men of Judah responded to the men of Israel, because the king is our relative. Why does this make you angry? Have we ever eaten anything of the king's or been honored at all? The men of Israel answered the men of Judah, we have 10 shares in the king, so we have a greater claim to David than you. Why then do you despise us? Weren't we the first to speak of restoring our king? But the words of the men of Judah were harsher than those of the men of Israel. This is actually how it ends on 2 Samuel chapter 19. It's foreshadowing something that's about to happen for the next several years. So the rest of the tribes of Israel, so notice that it starts off here. It says all the troops of Judah and half of Israel's escorted the king. And then the rest of Israel shows up, right? And so they get there and they're upset. They're jealous the rest of the tribes of Israel are there because Judah himself went. The tribe of Judah went for David by himself. So just that tribe went to go get David, and so they are upset. They're just because that's basically, I mean, he's the king of all of Israel, but only Judah shows up. Like why y'all get to go amongst in that go alone in this celebration? There should have been all of us out there. And so Judah explains that the reason why we did this because that's our close relative. That's the reason why we did it. He didn't give us anything for our troubles. He didn't do anything for us. We just went to go and get him. And so the tribes of Israel reject that answer, and they say that it's 10 of us. It's 10 tribes of us. Like we have the bigger share in David or the kingdom. We have a bigger share. We're the majority. But Judah did not back down. It says Judah answered them even more harsher than those of the men of Israel. And so a conflict is brewing right here, and we'll see it spill over in the next chapter. Questions or comments? What you got, G. White?
I can see that argument from the other tribes. Like, just because he's y'all relative, like he represents all of us, not just y'all. Why y'all here? Only y'all? I think that's a valid argument.
Yeah, there's actually a character.
Is that what David said? Why did they show up? Did David say, I just want them?
He didn't say, I just didn't want them. David actually called for them, though. He kind of started in a sense because
he said, I want these guys to escort me.
He reached out to Judah first. He said, hey, y'all, he says, why should y'all be the last to come get me? Because Israel makes a point. They were the first to say, why are we being silent about this? We should bring David back. So they were the first to say it. And then David reached out to Judah and said, hey, y'all shouldn't be the last to bring me back. Like, come and get me. I'm your relative. And so David kind of, in a weird way, started all this.
These were the guys that were just fighting them, though, right? They just ran them out of town.
Yeah, these are the same guys that ran them out of town.
And who just fought for him? Where the man who fought for him? Where they at?
He did. What are you talking about?
Not one man. Where the rest of his team? He had an army go fight for him.
The army is there.
Oh, well, if my army there, well, that don't really matter then. Because I think all of them was after him, wasn't he? Israel, too.
Yeah, all of Israel.
Oh, that's their problem. Yeah, y'all figured it. David got to straighten that out because that's Moses. I just want to make sure his team was there. His army was there first.
Yeah, so
they're
all of Israel's army that didn't die are there, and also of course David and his men are there. Justin, you have something?
It just seems like it's a trust factor at this point.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why why David was getting using Amasa as a commander in place of Joab. He's trying to unify this because he knew that it was going to kind of be there's going to be some issues, but that was from Judah. That was from the rest of Israel is just now coming to the picture at this point, and they are upset. And so just like G.Y. has said, why did they go? Why didn't we go? G.Y. is making this point. It's interesting because the very next chapter, there's going to be somebody say the exact same thing. What you got, G.Y.?
No, Israel's in the same boat as Judah. They that's the other side who are trying. That's between. I guess David has to sort it out because they're gonna probably kill each other.
Yeah,
but no, I don't trust neither one of them. Like, y'all both just tried to attack me. You both did attack me. Let's leave it there. That the only man I trust is the man that fought with me. Them other ones are side-eyed.
Well, I mean, you make a point. You make a good point. But if they're going to remain a kingdom, then he needs them to be together. Even still, he's brought back as king, but very quickly it's already about to be some turmoil.
Well, I hope Joab just got promoted to vice president. If that's the case, we could be getting better commanders. He need a new job, new title to watch everybody else.
Well, I don't want to spoil what's about to happen, but Joab about to get his job back.
He might just take it.
You don't know how true that is.
He's going to take it. He ain't going to tell the king what's going to happen on this week's schedule.
Yeah, Joab is something else, man. And so he's you might be Like I say, you are definitely saying some things that are about to happen. It's interesting that you've been saying it a few times now.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.